all unused content in Danganronpa. This means content that is cut from the game and never made it to the final note, content that is still hiding in the game's files but were never used, or Kodaka changing his mind last second and just completely altering the game. There's already some content that covered this topic in general, but I wanted to make a single video about the 3 main games that cover the most important stuff, so let's get right into it. Apparently, if Danganronpa sold more than 7 copies and Kodaka would become rich, he would release a game called Sakura Ogami's Revenge. It was, however, cut from development and never to be seen the light of day again. Most of you are already familiar with the beta version of Danganronpa called Distrust. It was a far more brutal, gruesome, and mature version of Danganronpa. A pretty notable difference is that the plot is red. There's this unused design of Junko's execution where she gets beheaded by a guillotine for brutally murdering Kyoko. Kyoko died a similar death to how Mukuro died by the spears of Gangir in the first game, and how Nagito fucking killed himself. Why is Leon mewing? In the second game, the students were also way more aggressive since the first murder occurred on the first day. The trial is being held in a warehouse instead of a courtroom. In a different version, however, some things never change. Leon Kuwata is still the culprit of this case. He gets brutally executed in a way that is similar to the original game, by balls. As you can see, a lot of the assets are being reused in the original games, such as Leon being carried to his fate by Monokuma, and then brutally be murdered by balls hitting his face. Furthermore, some of the characters have still their original looks, while other characters look completely different. But you should still be able to distinguish who is who, especially a certain baseball player who got pulverized to death. Genuine ahwa moment. There's a lot of concept art of Sayaka and Leon. This one in particular boggles my mind. In what fucking case would they ever need guns? Danganronpa is not that serious enough for this to be necessary. Also, the game was genuinely called Project Isengard, and I'm not making this shit up. And lastly, Sayaka uppercuts Leon in this scene, which I still don't understand why this would be necessary. These are the beta designs of the characters in Danganronpa Distrust. Like I said before, you could probably distinguish from most characters who's who. This just shows how iconic the Danganronpa characters are at this point. I think the character with the most glow up is Kiyotaka. I mean, how did he go from this sonic black hair, shadow ass hair to whatever the hell this is? Since Danganronpa Distrust was being held in an abandoned school, these are some of the older designs of the classrooms, and some of those classroom designs were carried over to the main game. Since the game was too gruesome, it couldn't be released in almost every country, but still a PSP cover of the game exists. I cannot read or speak Japanese, so someone has to correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that the 15 means 15 students or 15 participants, and the 7 means 7 days, 7 survivors, 7 murders, 7 trials. Pretty much the same recipe as an original Danganronpa game. I couldn't find a higher res image than this, but this is basically where we talk to Kyoko to increase our trust with her. Basically a free time event where we can pick different options, and depending on the option, either the character we're talking to trusts us more or distrusts us more. Yes, I said the name of the game. The old school map from Distrust got carried over to the main game. There's also more promotional art and character designs from Distrust. Once again, you could genuinely distinguish who is who. This is an early concept of how class trial was supposed to look like after a murder occurred. This was how Monokuma was supposed to fucking look like. Here's some character interaction slash free time event with Celestia and Byakuya, and also what appears to be an investigations together with Sayaka. A graphic concept image of a dismembered Chihiro. I have no clue when this would ever be necessary. This is an unused concept of where the original characters in the original game all escape happily after and don't have to participate in the killing game after giving up on their talents. Why does Kiyotaka have black instead of white clothes on? Here are 2 unused characters which I wish they did use: Chihiro's mom and Sayaka Maizono's sister. They were scrapped because it didn't really fit into the lore. Chihiro, they wanted him to be motherless, and Sayaka, yeah, they really wanted to focus more on her idol pop group in her motive, and that couldn't really be done if she had a sister. For some reason, Byakuya's unused sprites where he doesn't have glasses are carried over to the second game and third game. There's an unused trial slash closing argument where Mukuro appears to be the victim. She stumbles upon the naked man who committed the murder and was desperately trying to cover it up. Seeing that there's another witness, the naked man killed Mukuro. Now, let's move on to the second game, Goodbye Despair. There was supposed to be a second floor in the warehouse when Nagito fucking killed himself, which means there were more areas that we could have explored and investigated of the murder scene. Let me just put it like this, there's an uncensored CG in the game files of Hyoko and Mahiru showering. I don't really give a shit, but for some reason there's also a file of Chiaki's and Junko's panties. What? Kodaka, when was this supposed to be necessary? Akane was supposed to be an antagonist, that's why she had such a villainous look in the beta files. This is also a subtle reference on how I want her to step on me. This is Chiaki's beta design. It looks 100 times better than what we got. The ultimate imposter, Chiaki, and Akane were supposed to be the three major characters besides Hajime Hinata, but we all know that the ultimate imposter fucking died first, Akane is useless and didn't become the antagonist, and Chiaki pretty much carried the entire game. Also, the imposter was supposed to live, but he died. This is because the imposter was supposed to have a much major role since he was quote-unquote the return of Tokami, but we all know that he fucking died. And last but not least, there was supposed to be a Monami minigame, but it got cut from development. Let's move on to the last game, V3. Rentaro has a scrum debate sprite present in the game's files, despite being the first one to die. Miyu has an interesting sprite, which I do not understand whenever this would be necessary. There are unused scrum debate bullets present in the game's files. Characters that always oppose you are on your side suddenly on the opposite side, and for some reason Kaede and Shuichi, the protagonists, on the opposing side. Who are they fucking arguing with? Kaito, the main character? There are 3 unused mockshot sprites present in the game's files that are used during trials. Apparently the Mukuro and Monami ones were gonna be used when Tsumugi cosplays as them, but why Rentaro? He's dead. Why the fuck is the logo of the epilogue in V3 Nagito? The original V3 gameplay was supposed to be way more smoother and doughy. This was supposed to be the argument ornament sprite for Kaede. Judging by this image, Kaito was supposed to be the main character of V3 with Shuichi as his sidekick, but Kodaka decided last second to make him a schizophrenic woman beater with a main character syndrome. Also completely forgot to include this, but there's concept art of Peko fighting genocider Jekov.